I've been saying this for a long time. We got further confirmation today. The outside world loves Skylar Thompson much more than it seems like the K-State fan base does internally. The latest is from Jim Nagy, who's the executive director of the Senior Bowl, where seniors go to play in front of NFL draft scouts at the end of the season. He says, K-State quarterback Skylar Thompson is coming off pec injury and lacks huge stats, but his arm looked strong at Manning camp this week, and there's plenty of draftable tape. Senior Bowl buys into 30 pro-style starts, mobility, and clutch big game wins. That definitely lays out the resume for Skylar. I never thought that was an NFL resume, and I still don't believe that he is a guy that is going to get drafted. I think that would take a massive leap for the upcoming season, but I think a reasonable leap still gets him into a camp. I think he's still on the fringe. And to me, the more interesting part of this, like the bigger point of it, is that folks from the outside can look at the positives of the resume and like recognize that and appreciate that more than the actual fan base does. I don't mean to speak for everybody, but that little paragraph right there is pretty glowingly positive about Skylar. And yet, to me, Thompson is always the ink blot test where two K-State fans can look at the same thing and see two completely different things. You can either see the big wins, the rushing touchdowns, the 30 starts, or you can see he's been around forever, hasn't ever won big, and leaves the pocket too early and lost that game to West Virginia in 2019. I mean, you can get either one from two different people depending on who it is that you actually ask. I find that fascinating, and I'm not even saying that it's totally unprecedented or that everybody who feels that Skylar is not anywhere close to an NFL quarterback is completely wrong, but I find the whole theory of it very fascinating. I'll say this. I think you're somewhat wrong if that's the way that you view it. If you think that Skylar has been a bad quarterback or a below-average quarterback at K-State, I do think you're wrong. I think he's been average at worst, and I would say he has been an above-average quarterback at K-State in his time. An above-average quarterback who has dealt with never having great receivers, an offense that's never been conducive to putting up numbers that would be beneficial to his pro career, a head coaching change, and for a couple of years a coach that just refused to play him at quarterback even though he was clearly the better option. Now, I think the reason that he's not appreciated as much internally is it's very simple. Like, it's the same way that, you know, if you're looking at, so like J-Lo and Alex Rodriguez. Power couple, anybody would look at that and be like, all right, A-Rod, like, how could you mess this up? How could you ever cheat on Jennifer Lopez? Or how could you transgress against her? How could you I know it wasn't really him that decided to leave, but the rumors were that he had cheated on her or whatever. Like, how could you? Well, Alex Rodriguez is around Jennifer Lopez every single day. You're going to be exposed to more flaws. You're going to be exposed to things that will annoy you and potentially drive you away. I'm not here to counsel their marriage problems, but the example there is that if you are around your significant other every day, somebody on the outside may say, man, she is beautiful and seems really, really cool. Like, how could you ever be upset about anything with her? And your response would be like, well, try living with her every day. Like, I see the flaws. I see some of the things that can become annoying over time. Well, K-State fans are closer to it than Jim Nagy is. Jim Nagy just gets to watch Skylar come in, perform at the Manning camp, make his observations there, see some of the good, and he doesn't have to live with, he's not emotionally tied to, if Skylar has a bad game, doesn't play well, then it ruins your mood for the day, the week, depending on how big of a fan you are, whatever it is. So I do understand it from that point, but that doesn't make it right, and that doesn't mean that there shouldn't be more perspective offered to what Skylar has done. And what Skylar has done is beat 3 top 10 teams. That's the most of any active quarterback in college football this year. That will be true when he takes his first snap under center against Stanford in Arlington. And he also has some, when draftable tape comes into play here, which is what Jim Nagy has said, draftable tape, Skylar had 27 what PFF would call big-time throws in 2019, so just great throws. He had 27 of them. That was second in the Big 12, behind only Sam Ehlinger, who had 30. So that would be draftable tape, right? I mean, what you're looking for if you are an NFL team is potential. You're looking for potential there. What potential is in that arm? Well, if he's made 27 big-time throws, and that's second most in the Big 12, a quarterback-heavy conference, that should catch some people's eye. And that should get you some attention, and clearly it did, and it has. Here with Nagy, the guy that runs the Senior Bowl. So I will continue to preach this message because I think he has been very underrated throughout his time in Manhattan, or underappreciated. I really feel like underappreciated is the better word than underrated. Because I just appreciate Skylar and like what he's done and what he's been through here at K-State and some of the obstacles that he's had to overcome and how the infrastructure hasn't always been that great. And yet he has stuck around. He has some big wins. He has done some very good things. And he's clearly a great leader for the team. And that's even though I think he's got a bad perspective on the TikTok. Despite that, I'm going to continue to push this message. And so every time that I see some further confirmation of that from the outside world, I'm going to bring that to the table. Because, well, I can say, hey, easy for Jim Nagy to say because he doesn't have to be emotionally invested when things go poorly. I can also say, yeah, but sometimes we're too emotionally invested, and that can cloud our judgment of it because you let the disappointment cloud how it is that you're actually viewing and evaluating somebody. So you always need some middle ground, and I think something like this from Jim Nagy can pull us back closer to the middle ground on Skylar.
To start with the popularity of Skylar Thompson and with K-State fans, I would say he's probably not the most popular player on the team. I would give that nod to Deuce Vaughn. Deuce also played the whole year, and he jumped on the scene right away as a freshman. So there is the anticipation that you're going to get great Deuce Vaughn highlights for at least, I would say, 3 more years. Skylar Thompson is a 6-year guy. There's been a lot of drama around his name with Alex Delton battling for time. He doesn't have the best numbers when it comes to throwing the football. You don't look at the whole list and be like, dang, that guy slings it.
You made a great point about all the drama. I think it's a fair word, a fair characterization. Drama that has surrounded Skylar's career. Not all his fault. A lot of it just let's be honest, the fault of the previous coaching staff and how the quarterback battle was handled between Delton and Thompson, including, and we're coming off of media days, once taking them both to Big 12 media days. There's been a lot of drama and a lot of talk, and when that happens, people get fatigued. You get tired of it. When Tim Tebow is all over ESPN every day, you get tired of it. When LeBron is all over ESPN every day, you get tired of it. When you see Skip Bayless making the same dumb points about LeBron on Twitter every single time, at every single turn, even when he's not playing, he's just in a movie, you get tired of it. So there's some fatigue for sure that's gone on with Skylar. And I think at this point, that's why, we were having this conversation last year after the injury. He's out for the rest of the season, and it's like, all right, well, I mean, should he come back? Maybe it's just time to move on. Maybe everybody just wants to cut bait and move on. We clearly found out his value, and that's another point here. There should be more appreciation for Skylar, again, after everything that we all experienced last year watching the Will Howard experience, where he threw 10 picks, which is almost as many as Skylar has thrown his entire career. Skylar has 12 for his entire career. Howard threw 10 picks and 26% of the career attempts that Skylar had. So that should all earn Skylar another level of appreciation with you. And a final point that I would tack on here is just Skylar also has dealt with bearing the weight of 4 stars next to his name. That doesn't happen often at K-State that there's a 4-star recruit, period, let alone a quarterback. And so a lot of places, I mean, if you went to Oklahoma State, if you went to TCU, and you're a 4-star quarterback, yes, there will be expectations, but it's not going to stand out in the way that it does at K-State. At K-State, a 4-star recruit and a 4-star quarterback, that's finding an oasis in the desert. Stands out, your expectations are going to be very high. And so I think there's always been high expectations for Skylar to live up to that. Much the same way we're seeing it with Jake Rubley and now having to calm everybody down, being like, look, that open practice, it looked like he's the 4th-string quarterback right now. Just temper the expectations there. Skylar carries around that same weight and has since he first came on campus. So There are a lot of factors. I'm not naive to that. There's a lot of factors, and it's understandable that when you're closer to somebody, you're going to treat and feel differently about them than somebody who just flies in from the outside world and doesn't have to be there on a day-to-day basis. But we also are so close to it, sometimes it's good to take a step back and look at what the outside world is saying, thinking, and believing about your quarterback. And by the way, the pec injury thing, which, Skylar wouldn't tell me at media days, I do believe what Jim Nagy is saying to be pretty accurate there. I think that was a part of what was going on. Coming off of that and going to the Manning camp, which is a prestigious place, obviously, the Manning Passing Academy, going there and showing out enough to get Jim Nagy to tweet about you, that's a great sign for the upcoming season.